This square is a week. This is how many weeks a human is projected to live. Or at least how many weeks I'm projected to live. As a male from Canada, that's 4,188 weeks, or about 80 years. This is how many of those I've already lived, which is over 28%. You can figure out your own percentage on this website here. When I plugged in my information, the number was alarming, but not as alarming as the fact that it was counting up. Now, a lot of these weeks I've lived have been pretty fun. I've gone to concerts, I've enjoyed great meals, I've read life-changing works of literature, I've made connections with wonderful people. But a lot of this time has been spent on, well, the boring stuff. Things that are just tedious. But these things are necessary for us to live our lives, and they cut into the time we have on this earth, which is 72.6 years on average. Today, I'm going to do the math and figure out how much time we actually spend on what I'll call maintenance, to hopefully give some perspective on how little time we actually have here. I promise this will be interesting. Dental care. If you've achieved basic hygiene, I'm sure you brush your teeth twice a day. Now, most people don't brush quite as thoroughly as dentists would hope, clocking in at an average of 45 to 77 seconds per brush, half the recommended time. After tracking my own teeth brushing time for a week, I clocked in at an average of 2 minutes, so I guess I'm reasonably thorough. If you're part of the average though, you'll be brushing your teeth anywhere from 662 to 1,133 hours over the course of your life. But brushing isn't all there is. There's also flossing. Okay, you probably don't floss regularly. Dr. Matthew Messina, a consumer advisor for the American Dental Association, says that most dentists would guess that the percentage of daily flossers is less than 30%, and maybe as low as 10%. I don't know about you, but I usually floss for a couple days before a dentist appointment to impress them, and then a couple days afterwards after being lectured that I need to floss more. Speaking of dentist appointments, most people have those every 6 months, and each appointment lasts about an hour, which is obviously 2 hours per year, or about 145 hours over the course of your life. If your flossing behavior is similar to mine, and flossing takes about 5 minutes, with 4 flosses for every dentist appointment, that's about 24 hours of flossing over the course of a lifetime. Another aspect of basic hygiene is showering. I usually shower twice a day, but most people just shower the once. On average, people shower for about 8 minutes, which clocks in at about 49 hours per year, or 3,533 hours in a lifetime. This is the first major time sink, accounting for 0.56% of your life. Now, you could still technically get by in life without brushing your teeth or showering, but relieving yourself is something that can't be avoided. I found a paper showing that the average human pee time is about 21 seconds, but I couldn't find any literature on poop time, so I had to test this myself. The whole process, including washing and drying my hands, took me 2 minutes and 21 seconds, and peeing, including the time it took me to wash my hands, was about a minute. According to this paper, peeing up to 7 times per day is considered normal. As for pooping, there's no generally accepted healthy poop rate, but nearly 50% of people poop once per day, so I'll assume that. With those numbers, you'll spend 3,091 hours peeing and 1,029 hours pooping, adding up to a total of 4,120 hours in the bathroom. Along with staying clean inside and out, our bodies also require a great deal of other maintenance in the form of grooming. WikiHow recommends that we cut our fingernails and toenails about once every week or two. Again, I couldn't find any literature on this, but it took me 1 minute and 31 seconds to cut my fingernails and 1 minute 28 seconds for my toenails. This results in a total of 2 minutes and 59 seconds. If you cut your nails every 2 weeks, that's 1.3 hours per year, or about 95 hours over the course of your life. Shaving is an extremely variable component here. As a man who doesn't grow much facial hair, I shave my face once every few days, which takes about 15 minutes in my case. This one's a bit trickier to quantify on average, since some people shave their armpits, their legs, their arm hair, and other areas. I'll make a conservative estimate of about 45 minutes per week of shaving time post-puberty, which is 2,409 hours in a lifetime, or 0.38%. The other major grooming activity is haircuts. Most barbers I've talked to recommend getting it cut every 3 weeks, but for me it's closer to every couple months. I'll meet in the middle and say every 5 weeks, which is about 10 haircuts per year. If every haircut takes about an hour, that's 726 hours in a lifetime. The final component of grooming I'll mention is skincare, which is generally optional for most people. I do a little bit of skincare with a 5-minute routine every day, adding up to 30.5 hours per year, or 2,208 hours in my lifetime. Our bodies are also very fragile, and we spend a lot of time making sure they're working properly. Doctor's appointments are a consistent way to do this, and if you have one of those every 6 months, and each appointment takes about an hour, that's 145 hours over the course of your life. But what if you want your body to be particularly healthy? The answer for that is regular exercise, which comes in loads of different flavors: walking, running, lifting weights, or lifting yourself. Most people that do exercise seem to do it from 3 times a week to 6 times a week. If each sesh is about an hour, that's anywhere from 11,355 to 22,714 hours in a lifetime, spent sweating and straining to get that juicy bod. That's about 1.8 to 3.6% of your life. Now, along with keeping the body clean, groomed, and healthy, there's also a lot of boring stuff we have to do to keep the spaces around us nice and maintained. The clothes we wear, for instance, need to be cleaned through a process called doing laundry. According to this survey, Americans spend about 5 to 17 minutes per day on average doing laundry, which works out to 5,300 to 7,508 hours in a lifetime. But it's not just the clothes on our backs that need cleaning, but the surfaces around us too. That same survey shows that Americans spend 10 to 29 minutes per day cleaning their house or apartment, which adds up to 4,416 to 12,807 hours in a lifetime. As fun as cooking and eating food can be, there's also the tedious process of getting the food and bringing it back to your house. Back in the day, we had to hunt and gather for our sustenance, but now we can stroll through the fluorescently lit aisles of a grocery store, shiny, colorful labels catching our attention, and corporate pop blaring through the speakers. Data from the US Census showed that the average person in the US 15 or older spends about 10 hours shopping for consumer goods per month, which is 8,712 hours in a lifetime. After your food is cooked and eaten, you are now confronted with the excruciating task of washing the dishes. A survey from 2021 indicates that Americans spend an average of 25 minutes per day doing this. This task is so dreaded that the same survey showed that 1 in 5 Americans would give up sex for a year in exchange for a lifetime of no dishes. I would take that deal too, since it would save me 8,760 hours over the course of my lifetime. That seems worth it to me. Okay, so here are the full numbers. Hygiene counts in at a total of 8,956 hours, or 1.4% of your life. You'll spend 5,438 hours grooming yourself, about 0.9% of your life. Health stuff adds up to a mere 145 hours if you never work out, but 22,859 hours if you do. And miscellaneous upkeep varies from 27,188 to 37,787 hours. In total, that's anywhere from 39,519 hours to 75,040 hours, which is 6.2 to 11.8% of your life. Now, you might have noticed some missing pieces here. Many would argue that some of the most tedious and boring parts of life happen at 2 particular places: school and work. The reason I didn't include these in my initial breakdown is because they aren't fully maintenance. Sure, there are many boring moments at school and work, but there's also the opportunity for interesting, meaningful experiences. That being said though, I did crunch the numbers. A standard Canadian education from kindergarten to high school is 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for 14 years. Accounting for summer vacation, winter holidays, and spring or March break, that adds up to 17,280 hours for a high school diploma, or about 2.7% of your life. If you opt for post-secondary education, a full-time student usually takes about 30 hours of lectures or labs per week per academic year. With 15-week semesters, this works out to 3,600 hours over the course of 4 years. Once your training is done, it's time to trade your time for money in order to afford to survive. According to Statistics Canada, the average retirement age in my country is just over 63.5 years old. If you enter the workforce at 22 after graduating university, that's 41.5 years of working 9 to 5. Annual vacation depends on how long you've been working for your employer, but I'll just say you get 2 weeks off per year for the purposes of this. That adds up to just over 2,000 hours per year of working, or about 83,000 hours in your lifetime, just over 13% of your life. Now, how about sleep? Personally, I absolutely love sleeping. The rest is great, it gives you a break from all the complex worries of life, and dreaming is just fun as hell. But it definitely cuts into your life quite a bit. If you sleep 8 hours a day, which is what most experts recommend, you'll be asleep for 211,992 hours during your lifetime, which is exactly 1/3 of your life. Which is actually pretty obvious considering 8 is 1/3 of 24. If you add all of this to the numbers from earlier, you have 351,696 to 391,248 hours of maintenance, which is around 55 to 61% of your life. So why did I throw all those numbers at you and make you contemplate your mortality? What do we do with the fact that the majority of our lives is just the boring parts? Now, I could throw some Buddhism at you and tell you that immersing yourself in the totality of conscious events is necessary to achieve enlightenment. how every pleasure is associated with an accompanying pain, or how the boringness of most of life makes the enjoyable parts more valuable. But that still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It still makes me feel like most of my life is just a tedious waste of time. It's as if these moments are just a waiting room for the good parts of life. I remember someone telling me what was supposed to be a relatable story a few months ago. They said something like, "Don't you hate it when you're brushing your teeth watching TikToks and you have to spit the toothpaste out? So you have to let the current TikTok repeat a bunch of times without being able to scroll to the next one." This mindset is exactly what I'm getting at. All of these boring parts of life are just seen as necessary toil, preventing us from being stimulated, entertained, or happy for the brief moments we have to engage in them. But in the grand scheme of things, as I've shown, they aren't really all that brief. We shouldn't let such large sections of our lives just be a chore. I think David Foster Wallace offered us a pretty solid solution to this problem in his commencement speech, This Is Water. He discusses the toil of adult life, full of boredom, routine, and petty frustration. His solution to these dreaded moments is a shift in attitude and attention. He says,
"Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, you will be totally hosed."
Later in the speech, he says,
"But if you've really learned how to think, how to pay attention, then you will know you have other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation as not only meaningful, but sacred, on fire with the same force that lit the stars. Love, fellowship, the mystical oneness of all things deep down."
How do we achieve this? Well, a lot of it comes from being less stuck in your own head. It's easy to get annoyed when you're stuck in line at the convenience store, and the guy in front of you is going through dozens of lottery tickets, which will take several minutes, and you just want to buy a bottle of water. It's easy to get frustrated, thinking about how the lottery is a scam, and this guy is just another dumb victim who doesn't understand probability. It's easy to think about what you're late for, why you deserve to be rang through first, and how this guy has directly wronged you. By the end of your transaction, you'll be filled with a mild ennui at best and a seething rage at worst. But you can try to interpret this situation differently. Instead of spending all that time ruminating about this stranger, passing judgment, and contemplating your superiority, you can just snap back to reality and focus your attention on the present moment. Maybe you'll notice the guy is wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt, and you think to yourself, "Hey, I love that band." After he's done, you point out his shirt, and you two share a moment of connection. Now, your experience in this convenience store left you in high spirits. You walk back to your car with a grin on your face. As you're driving to your meeting, you hit a few red lights, but that doesn't bother you, because you started listening to Dark Side of the Moon for the first time in years, and you're reminiscing about the point in your life when this album meant the world to you. Now, this pattern of thought doesn't come naturally to us. We're always the center of our own experience, and a certain level of self-absorption is par for the course, but it's worth striving for. As cliche as it sounds, the solution to the boredom of life is to embrace it. And just live in the moment, man. Click the thumb, type a comment, press subscribe, and ding the dong. Follow me on Twitter, and thanks for watching.